Hello guys, this is mograph.com tutorial, and today we're going to look at creating a countdown graphical sequence. Let's have a look at how the final result will be. Okay, so you can see that the look is quite rather simple, graphical, and plain 2D, which is exactly what we are going for. It's also black and white, as you can see, and the animation is rather simple, but I think we can demonstrate on this some nice features of Mograph and some nice ways how to animate using Mograph rather quickly, much faster than we would be doing this in 2D programs like After Effects or Flash or whatever you would want to do something like this in. Okay, let's jump into Cinema 4D. And to begin with, let's just jump into some project settings. If you hit Command D, if you're on a Mac, you go change the frame rates to 25 FPS. That's what I use anyway. And let's just change the maximum time to, let's do 5 seconds. So if you do 5 times your 25 FPS, that will result in 125 frames of animation. Also, another thing that I will do, I will go into render settings, and the output I will change the film aspect ratio to 16:9, and I'm just going to change this to 25 FPS as well in the output. This way we're going to have a nice wide frame result at the end. Okay, now let's just look at this and see what we're going to be creating. There are some discs here, discs of rotating lines. We have these numbers counting down. We have this outer ring, and we have this disc here in the middle that's being kind of distorted as we go down the number sequence. To the first thing that we're gonna do will be these disks of lines. To do that, we're going to use Mograph, and we're going to use cloner tool. Let's go into Mograph, create a cloner. Obviously you need something to clone, so go and create a plane. The plane, we just need 1 by 1 segments. We don't need that many polygons. Drop it under your cloner, and in cloner, in object mode, select it to radial mode. That way we create scale, sorry, just scale this down. You can see that it's creating a circle on which we are positioning our clones. Though the plane mode here is wrong, let's just set it to X and Z, and so if you look from the top and increase the radius, you can see that that's exactly what we want. We will change the ratio of the plane, we'll change the width to something like 10 and the height to something like 40, and definitely increase the amount of clones. There we go. So we created first of our disks here. To move the clones around, what we're going to do is that we're going to animate the offset. And the cloner radial mode, you have the offset mode that you can increase the percentage here, and that creates your radial animation. Interesting aspect of this is the offset variation. Let's say that we boost this to 90, and if you then change the offset variation here to something like 50, you will see that the way how each clone is affected by the offset varies. And if we move the offset here, you see that the clones are, some of them are moving faster, some of them are moving slower than the other clones, which creates an interesting look. Let's just jump straight in and animate this. Go into your first keyframe, and on your offset, let's say something like 40, record the keyframe. That we will do by having the offset selected, holding Command and clicking on this little dot until it turns red. Go to the end and change this something like 200 maybe. Record a keyframe, and let's play this. Okay, so we have the animation, it's looking quite good, but I don't like the way how it eases in and out. So with this in mind, let's go into timeline window, just bring this up, and if you select the cloner here, just going to scale to reveal what's happening. So the cloner, both of the keyframes are selected, and if you go to key, select the linear mode or the linear interpolation, we see that the easing is gone, and we have a nice animation going on at a steady rate. Okay, that's one thing, but you know what, let's just boost the number of clones a little bit more. Okay, that's looking nice, but if you see our final result, you see that the clones, some of them are sort of bouncing towards the center, then coming back. Now, that is something that is not that difficult to do, and we'll do it by combining a random effector, which will weight our clones differently, with plane effector, which is what will move our clones. Let's just first create the plane effector and then explain the weighting. The plane effector is here. By default, it's changing the Y position, which is not what we want. We want to change the Z position here. Let's just bring it in, and notice that all the frames are being affected. That is because the plane effector is using infinite shape as a fall off, so all the clones are affected. Let's change this to something like a cone. Looking at a cone, if we take our rotate tool, I press R on my keyboard, which brings me a rotation mode. I then rotate this 90 degrees, and looking from the top, what I have here is like a little triangle slice, looks a bit like a pizza slice, that will then move our clones around. You can see, if you don't know Mograph, you should know that fall off is kind of an area where an effector is affecting the clones. You see that as I move it here, the clones that are inside this cone move where the other clones don't. So let's just make this guy a little bigger. I'm gonna adjust the size, make it wider and make it longer. You can see that there's a gradient between the red where the clones are being affected 100% and the yellow where the clones are being affected 0%. This is something that you can change here in the fall off settings, so I'm just going to boost this a little bit so that more clones are being affected. And let's bring this up even more. And now you can see these are moving forward, these are staying where they are. What we will want to do is to rotate this cone around so that it looks like there's like a wave going around our circle. To remind ourselves, the circle are moving in this direction. I think the cone should move in the other direction. Let's just go and create a very simple, I don't even know if I should call it a rig, but very simple rig of our effector here. If you create a null object, the null object has a center right in the middle of our screen. If we then take our plane effector, drag it under the null, it's a very simple way how to then get the null, get the rotation tool, and as we rotate this, we can see that we are affecting the clones and rotating with the plane effector. Just going to call this null plane. Okay, and let's create the animation. So I will go under the null into coordinates, and we're changing the H, the heading property here. We'll start from 0, record a keyframe, go to the very end, and go something like let's go something like 360, so it goes full circle. And now play this. We see that's looking rather nice. We can even keep the ease in, but what I don't want to keep looking at is this fall off. So I use this traffic light here at the bottom, at the top, to hide the fall off, but the actual vector still stays. Now what I don't like is that the movement, if you go on the plane parameter, this is a bit too small. And now we can see this is looking much better. All right. Then if you select our cloner, go into transform, display, weight, we see that all these clones are weighted the same way. That means that the plane effector is affecting them all the same, which is why they all go here in the middle in kind of the same way. To change this and make it more random, what we do is that we select the cloner, go in under Mograph, effector, random effector. Now the random effector will start messing them around, but we're gonna uncheck the position. So at the moment the random effector isn't actually randomizing anything. And we'll go in random effector here to weight transform, and we put that to 100%. Now we see that the weights change. Some of them are yellow, but the animations remains the same. That is because on the cloner effector list we see that the random effector is after the plane effector, which means the weights are changed after the plane effector actually is executed. Now if we change this, we see that something has changed here. We also will go under the plane effector, and in fall off we will put the weight down, which means that this will sort of accept the weight of our clones rather than putting its own 100% weight on everything. Now if you play this, we see that some of them don't move at all, some of them move, which is good because it's a bit more random and a bit more organic. And one thing that we don't like is that there are quite a lot of them that actually don't move at all. And what we would like is, rather than that, we would like them maybe to move a little less. And to do so, under random effector, if you go into actual effector, there's this minimum and maximum value. This minimum now is set to -100, which means that the clones, the red clones, are weighted to minus values, which is something that is easily fixed by dragging this minimum to, let's say, 0, and then when we play this, we see that they all kind of move. They all kind of move, but some of them move less, some of them move more. Okay, so we created this. We also will go to cloner and just disable the weight preview. We don't need to see this. Okay, that's looking quite nice. And the last touch that we will do is that we will add a delay effector. The delay effector will smooth our animation. You can see that now it's kind of boom, boom, bang, bang. It's not very fluid. So if we select the cloner and go on the Mograph effector, delay effector, if we play it now, you can see that movement is much smoother, much nicer. Okay, for now I'm just gonna disable the delay effector because when we play with the settings, it will just mess with us. So let's just keep this off, and we're gonna turn it on later. I'm gonna group all our stuff together by selecting everything and pressing Alt G on the keyboard. This is now all under one now, which I'm gonna call disk 1. Why not? Okay, created the disk, and we're just gonna use this, duplicate a couple times, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and change some of the settings to make it more random. And we are done with the center part. Okay, let's duplicate this one time here, and go under the cloner in object. I'm gonna increase the radius. Now what we need to be careful is that when we increase the radius, we need to check the plane effector whether our clones are still within its reach, which is fine here, so we don't need to change anything. I'll use the traffic light to get rid of it from the viewport. And one other thing is that you can see that this is exactly the same layout as the previous ring. It doesn't look very good, so I'm going to increase the number of clones, which will change that. We also change the way how it's rotating. We're gonna rotate it to the other side. To do that, I think the easiest way will be to bring our timeline up and actually reverse the frames. Now, because our clones are named same, we cannot really tell which one is which. So let's go here, change this cloner to cloner 2, and if we go back to our timeline window, where you can see all the frames, this is our cloner we want to change. And now I'm not sure whether there's something like revert frames here. So what I do is that with this selected, you can see here you have these handlebars which you can use to scale your animation. But what you can also do is that when you drag it the other way, it means you can reverse your keyframes. So I'm gonna reverse this, and if I play it, you can see that they're both turning different directions, and this is quite nice. What I'm gonna also do is I'm gonna do the same thing for the plane effector. So I'm just gonna call this now plane 2. Go under, oh sorry, this is a different document. Go under window, timeline, now plane 2, and do the same thing. So I'm just gonna reverse the frames this way. Now, if you know some other way how to time reverse your keyframes, it would be nice if you mentioned that in comments. But let's move on. You can see now that everything is looking nice in the way that we want it. Let's duplicate the inner one, which is moving clockwise. Let's duplicate it one more time, and this time boost the radius. We don't really have to worry about the keyframes anymore. Boost the time, or boost the count, sorry. But now, what I mentioned before, if you look at the plane effector, some of the clones are actually slowly getting out of the reach. So let's go into fall off here and make this a little longer. Now if I move the cone, you can see that now we are safe and all our clones are being affected. Okay, that's looking rather nice. The only other thing that I will do is that I will change the aspect ratio of our lines inside our disk. So I'm going to go to this middle one, and the cloner we have the plane, and I might make this into 30, which is rather flat. So let's just put it to 20, and we scale it down like so, and then this outer ring, let's go to the plane, and maybe we can make it even thinner, and definitely we can add some more guys there. Okay, so that's quite nice animation. Don't forget to save your work often. So let's go save, and I'll call this countdown record. I have a previous version here. Let's put it countdown record 2. All right, so this is looking quite nice. Let's make another one. Let's make a fourth and a final one. So I'm going to duplicate this middle one, which is rotating in a different direction to the other two, and again do the same thing. Go to the cloner, increase the radius, and this time we're gonna have a lot of clones, and we also will have, let's say, put 10 by 10. So they're rather pixels, and let's double the amount of clones, type 200. Now there's quite a lot of them, and definitely adjust the plane effector size again so that it reaches all of our clones. Okay, I'm going to hide this let's play. And yeah, that's looking good. That's looking great. We're gonna create one more copy of this, which will be used for this line, for these lines outside. Let's just use this basic one, and this time I'm gonna destroy the delay and random effector. I'm also gonna get rid of the plane effector, and also get rid of the offset variation, because we just want a regular size shapes. And let's boost our radius here. Put the number of clones up to 150, let's say. And surely we have to adjust the size here, make this even thinner. And I'm just gonna make the radius again a little bit bigger here, and that's looking nice. We play the animation. Problem here is that it's rotating a bit too fast. So let's go to the last frame where the keyframe is in the offset, 200. I think even something like 40 is going to be enough. So let's play that, and something went wrong. Oh, that's because the first frame is set to 40 as well. So let's just reset the first frame to 0, record a keyframe, and yes, that's looking good. Now, one thing that we will do is that we will create a camera by clicking the camera icon. This will create a camera from current view. I'm looking from the top, so all I need to do is just adjust some settings here. Let's put this to 0, -90. Okay, like so, and change this X and Z to 0, and now we're looking from the very top, very center top down. Okay. Now we're gonna zoom a little bit and move the camera a bit higher. Okay, and what we need to do is, when we will move the camera, we're going to be moving the camera down closer to our rings. We want to get this kind of parallax. You see how when we start here, these rings are closer than when we land here, they're further away from each other, and that's because they're offset in the Y space. We look now from the right side on our setup. You can see that all of the disks are on one level. This is a very easy thing to fix. Let's just go into the right view and start messing around with the clones. Let's take the first one, put it a bit higher. Let's put the last one, let's just keep it where it is. Now this one can go a little bit lower, and this one can go really close to the camera. Okay, now we have this, but obviously now it's a little bit messed up with our proportion, so we're gonna have to go change this a bit. So this guy, I'm gonna boost the radius so it's really outside. Then the very last guy, again, I'm gonna boost the radius so we have some space there. Then we're gonna grab this guy and bring the radius down a little bit. Okay, then we're gonna grab this guy and put the radius up. And last, we'll take this guy, put the radius again a little bit up, so that everything is how it was before, looking from the top view. But obviously when we move the camera, and you'll see that when we move the camera, you can see that they all are getting closer or further away from each other. Let's just reset it to where it was before. Okay, so that's looking good. And now that we have all our rings, in place, let's create this disk shape in the middle that's being distorted before we're going to jump onto our numbers here. To do this, we're just going to use a disk object. There it is. The disk I'm gonna scale up. I'm gonna scale up like that. I'm gonna use the inner radius to create, sort of trace this. And let's just have a look at this from the right view. Put it as the lowest part there and adjust it again. Alright, that's looking good. I'm gonna double the amount of segments here. Just gonna type times 2, and okay, that's good. But looking at this here, we have this kind of wireframe look that is easily achievable if you drag your object, any kind of a mesh you have, under a atom array. So let's just do that, and we see that we created a wireframe. Now, atom array, if you don't know, creates a representation of your mesh by outlining the edges with cylinders and placing spheres to where your points are. Now we're going to bring this down and we're going to level the numbers both on something like 0.3. Okay, so render that, it's very thin, and since both of these numbers for the cylinders and spheres are the same, we don't really get the spheres. If I would boost this to something like 10, if we render this, we're going to see spheres there, but that's not what we want. I'm just going to return it back to something like this, and that's looking nice. Okay, now the disk in our animation is being distorted by some presence of something, and that something is a random effector. Now, if you don't know this, you can use any type of Mograph effectors as deformers. We will drag this under the disk as if it was a deformer, and what we need to do to activate it is to go under our random effector. We need to go to Deformer tab and turn the deformation to point. This way the deformation will happen on the point level, not on a polygon or object level, but on the point level. And now we can't really see it because it's very thin, but if I create a new material with white luminance channel and put it on our atom array, we will see that we are randomly moving the points around. That is good, but it's static, and we're moving all of the points. We want to animate that, and we only want to affect certain points. To animate all of the points, you go to Random, go to Effector, and in Random mode, select Noise. Now, noise will, depending on your scale and animation speed setting, animate the randomness of each point. So that is good. And the other thing that we do is that we need to set a fall off. At the moment, all of the points are affected because of the infinite shape here, but if you select something like a sphere, only the points inside our sphere will get affected. Now, we will have to animate this and rotate the fall off shape around our center point here. To do this, we can adjust the offset here so that we move this guy where the points are. But of course, if we look from, let's say, our right view, you can see that the fall off and the disk shape are not on the same level. So we need to bring the random effector down. That way we see that we are starting to affect the points, but we need to compensate for this move by adjusting the offset. So that is done. Let's have a look. Okay, in the effector we can, whereas in the parameter, in the transform, we can boost these numbers up a little. Okay, that's looking good. So let's have a look. Right, now To rotate this, we're just gonna need to rotate the heading coordination of our random effector. Go to first frame here, record a position for the heading, go to the last frame and put in 360 degrees. Okay, and now if we play this, we see that we're affecting, sort of distorting the disc, and we're rotating that distortion. That is what we want to do, so that's perfect. Let's just hide this fall off gizmo so that it doesn't obstruct our viewport. And what we're going to do now, before we forget about it, we're going to go into our discs and I'm just going to activate the delay so that it's all nice and smooth. Okay, so that's looking very nice. And the last thing that we need to do is the most important thing on the countdown, and that will be the numbers. Now the numbers we're going to create by using the text spline tool here. I'm going to change the plane to XZ, and I'm using the font called Venati. Let's scroll the way down, use Venati, and I'm just going to input the initial value of 4, scale it up here by adjusting the height, set the align to middle, and just move this so that it sits in the center. Now I will put an extrude NURBS into the scene, make the text child of it, and in the extrude I'm just going to zero our movement here. The way how I'm creating this effect is, you probably guessed it, by using the atom array. Now I'm using the atom array here, making this a child, and you can see that because it's working with points and we don't really have any points inside our extrude, we're gonna have to change the settings here. So go to the caps. The type n-gon means we have one many-sided polygon that we just change to quadrangle and create a regular grid here, which sort of slices our polygon into, let me just zoom in, slices our polygon into these segments that then create a nice shape like this. In this case I'm gonna do some adjustment to the array here, make this 1, make this, let's say, 4, and let's just bring a white texture on that. Let's just turn on the luminance and put the white into color, and use that material and use the luminance on the atom array. Right, so that's nice. You know what, let's just put this back to how it was in 5, and let's just make this whole thing a little bigger by scaling it up. Okay, that's good. And what we need to do now is that we will do the same trick with the random effector to move the points around and create this kind of a story animation. To do that, we will put a random effector and the extrude NURBS under one null object, and set the random again to deformer to point level. Go to parameter and zero all these guys out, and we're going to move only the Z axis, which is what we're going to animate to create this effect. So let's do a test render. That's looking very nice. Bring this back to 0 and create the animation of the letters first. So that, go to first frame, Here we have our number 4. Again, we record the text value, go to frame 25, record the value here, but sorry, set it to 3 and record. Go to number 50, select 2, record. Number 75, go number 1 and record, and go to frame 100, set it to 0 and record. Okay, let's just play this back. 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Cool. Now, in a random, what we will do is that this is going to be easier to do with the timeline, so that we see all the other frames. What we'll do is that right before the number change, we go into the, let me scale this down, we go here and record the Z value. When the number change, we go and really crank this up to something like 1000 and record a keyframe. Then a few frames after that, we go to -400, and a few frames after that, we reset to 0. Again, record a keyframe. So now if you play that, we go like that. That is very nice transition. We can then select the keyframes here, and if you hold Command and drag them, we can duplicate it to create the same effect for our other numbers. So I'm just going to duplicate this. I know that this second frame always sits with this keyframe where the number changes. So if I now play this back, we go 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Fantastic. So the animation is created, and what we need to do now is to move our camera. We want to end up rather close to the 0, so let's say something like that. We record a frame here, and for the camera, of course, go to our first frame, and we're gonna start on something rather far away, like so. And now if I play this animation, we're moving in. Okay, so that's that. To render this or do any other additional setting to it, like materials and stuff, to be honest, I just keep everything as it is. Go on the render and save this as a PNG with alpha channel, and go into your output mode, select the frame range to all frames, select the file, select where you want to save it, go into composition, project file. What I do is that I always save all these guys here, hit render, and get the image sequence. Now I'm going to work with something that I rendered before to show you how I composite it. The first thing that I did is that into my project I imported excuse me, I imported the compositing file that came from Cinema. That brought me in the camera information and the rendered image sequence. That way, if I drop some 2D elements in, and turn them into 3D in After Effects, they will then stay in without me having to track them, which is rather nice. What I've done is that, see that this is the plain render. I used a real smart motion blur effect to add some motion blur to when the numbers are changing, so it looks rather nice. I added a zoom blur, which is a radial blur actually, that is set to zoom type. Just a little, just a touch of it, you can see that it's affecting these outer lines, these lines here. If I just zoom in, to create a little less flat look. I did some curves adjustment here to bring the colors up. Remember, it was rather gray when it was coming out from cinema, so I boosted the colors with curves. And to add a little bit of a texture to the back, I added this bitmap that I found. It's actually an image of washing machine. So I thought, this actually looks like we're looking inside a washing machine. So found this photo, put it in the comp, scaled it, and added some adjustments like levels so that it's quite dark. I blurred it so you don't actually see that it's a scaled up image of washing machine, and I desaturated it to give it that black and white look. And that's pretty much all I did. Like I said before, nothing really complex. If you would want to add some color, I created a solid with 4 color gradient that I overlay on top of everything. You can see that now this is some kind of a blue. You can change the colors of your 4 color gradient. If you're that guy who likes pink, you can easily change your color palette here, for example, and create that kind of a pinky overcast over that, but I like it nice black and white, and that's what I did. So thanks for watching, guys. I think it's, like I said, it was quite simple project, but shown quite nice, some nice principles that I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time.